This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Predicting danger, a closer look at the tools police use to assess the risk of intimate partner violence. A Cape Breton doctor warns against a new law that gives government access to medical records. And Team Canada triumphs over USA in the Four Nations face-off.
Hey, it's weekend time and a pretty nice one shaping up. Lots of sunshine for Saturday. Temps a bit cool. We're milder for Sunday, but a few flakes in the mix. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. As the province grapples with the intimate partner violence crisis, attention is turning to possible solutions. And that includes the importance of measures to ensure it doesn't happen in the first place. As the CBC's Shayna Luck reports, there are some assessment tools already in use in Nova Scotia aimed at doing just that.
As bereaved families and advocates speak out about urgent action on intimate partner violence, many have highlighted the importance of prevention measures. There are some assessment tools already in use in Nova Scotia that can predict danger. One is a list of 20 questions called the Jacqueline Campbell Danger Assessment. The questions include things like whether the male partner owns a gun or whether the victim has ever tried to commit suicide. That's used mostly by victim services workers. A shelter manager in Kentville says she's worried because the assessments her team is using are getting worse.
They're becoming much more severe, and they're coming to more like the police's attention, victim services attention, because their severity.
Another tool used by police departments is called the Ontario Domestic Assault Risk Assessment, or ODARA. It's a series of 13 yes or no questions. Researchers have found these are predictive for the risk of future assaults. The ODARA questions include things like whether the victim was confined during the incident, whether the accused has ever violated certain court orders, or whether the victim was pregnant during the attack. ODARA was developed by Zoe Hilton, a professor of psychiatry and a researcher in Ontario.
Well, it means that interventions can begin, support can begin, vigilance can begin at a very early stage in identifying a situation involving domestic violence.
As a policy, Nova Scotia does additional monitoring on any case that scores more than 7 out of 13 on the ODARA questions. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
A Cape Breton doctor is speaking out tonight about a legislative change that gives government greater access to personal health records. Margaret Fraser says the new law is a breach of her patients' privacy rights and wants to see the law reversed. The CBC's Kyle Moore has the story.
Dr. Margaret Fraser runs a family practice in Sydney. She feels medical privacy in Nova Scotia no longer exists after the province amended legislation giving the government access to patients' medical records.
My medical records can no longer be considered to be confidential because anybody that Nova Scotia Health authorizes can go into those charts and access any information that they deem is relevant to the investigation for whatever purposes they are looking into them. And that's just dead wrong.
The province says having access allows them to better plan and manage the healthcare system, but Fraser says physicians already provide data to do that.
They can already get statistics through the billing data that we send in every time we end an office. It's anonymized. It can be provided to them without any person attached to it. They don't need to know who in Nova Scotia is depressed. They just need to know that there's 40,000 people who are being treated for depression in Nova Scotia, as an example.
The Department of Health and Wellness says changes made to the Act is what allowed them to make electronic records available to patients who want them through the Your Health NS website and phone app. In an email, a spokesperson says government is not accessing patient health records. To make this suggestion is simply fear-mongering. There are strict measures in place to protect patient data.
The report I'm getting that the government is having a regular meeting with Dr. Nova Scotia and discussing this issue on a regular basis. And so far, I don't think we have any concern or major concern.
Doctors Nova Scotia feels patients should have the option to opt out and not allow their medical records to be accessed.
In the center of our care, or what we do it for the patient. So if you ask me the question, should the patient have an option to not to share their own information? I think they should.
Fraser says she has requested that her family practice and patients' records not be accessed for any reason.
I run a private business, and the provincial government has absolutely no business interfering in the running of my private business.
Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
All right, CBC meteorologist Ryan Snoddon on deck. Everyone wants to know what's up this weekend.
That's right, and it is looking like a pretty good weekend, Elizabeth. That's the good news. Thank you so much. As we talk about Saturday in particular, that's, I think, going to be the better of the 2 days, especially if you're a fan of the sunshine, and who's not. Temperatures ranging between about -3 and -5. Now, those northwest winds that were persistent through Friday will continue into Saturday. Sustained in the 15 to 20 range, but becoming lighter into the afternoon, especially for central and western areas of the province. So some good news there. Sunday, we've got the clouds building in and some flurries, even some light accumulation possible. A trace to a couple of centimeters, certainly looking possible for most of the province. So if you are traveling on Sunday, be mindful that things could turn a little bit slick in some spots. We'll talk more about this with your full 7-day forecast coming up in a few minutes, Elizabeth.
All right, sounds good. Looking forward to it. A CBC analysis has found that workers' wages in Nova Scotia have grown faster than inflation for the second straight year, but wages remained the lowest in Canada last year. Andrew Lamb brings us that story.
Nova Scotia wages grew faster than inflation for the second straight year, reversing a trend of workers effectively taking a pay cut as the prices of essentials like groceries soared. But many are still struggling to make ends meet. Dartmouth resident Lakanpal Singh works 70 hours a week.
Working and just taking a sleep for 4.5 hours, then wake up again and go back to the same thing. And due to this, my health has been so messed up lately, right?
In 2024, half of Nova Scotia workers made $25.64 an hour or less. That's about 2% higher than the previous year after accounting for inflation. Labour economist Lars Osberg says this is good news, but it hides the unequal impact inflation has had.
Low-wage workers spend more of their income on the necessaries like groceries or rent, and those are the types of goods whose prices have increased most rapidly.
Osberg says Nova Scotia's minimum wage has begun to keep up with inflation, pushing up the incomes of the lowest paid workers.
The increases in the minimum wage have basically not caused an increase in unemployment. They have caused an increase in incomes at the bottom of the wage distribution and lessened the poverty, lessened the deprivation of low-wage workers.
Nova Scotia wages were still the lowest in Canada last year, and Osberg says any progress workers have made could come to a halt if the U.S. implements sweeping tariffs on Canada.
If there is a trade war with the United States, that means that there's going to be a loss of jobs in trade-dependent sectors. There's going to be an increase in the rate of price inflation because we import so many goods.
For Singh, things like being able to rent an apartment by himself remain out of reach.
You want something, but you cannot get it, right? As much as you try, it's just very tough.
According to the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, the living wage in Halifax is just over $28 an hour and $24 an hour in Cape Breton. Andrew Lamb, CBC News, Halifax.
Nova Scotia's premier is back in Washington, trying to pitch the anti-tariff message. Tim Houston and Doug Ford are meeting with American governors on the sideline of their annual summit in the U.S. Capitol. Katie Simpson has more.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston spent their day working meeting rooms at a downtown Washington hotel, trying to convince American governors of all political stripes to speak up and push back against tariffs.
What's shocking to me is how misinformed a lot of elected officials down here, how critical Canada plays in their economy and their critical minerals and their energy in manufacturing is aluminum and nickel and potash and uranium. So When we tell them all this, they're like, wow, we didn't realize this.
I believe we'll get through this. This is a relationship that has survived a couple hundred years, depressions, wars, all kinds of highs and lows in the relationship, and I believe we'll get through this, and we'll just do everything we can to make sure we get through it faster.
This is the second trip to D.C. in a month for both premiers. Neither think a breakthrough moment is imminent, but they defended their plan to keep trying to convince as many people as they can that tariffs will not just hurt the Canadian economy, but the American economy too. In speaking with governors at this conference, we found there was mixed reaction to tariffs. While some Republicans supported Donald Trump's plan, some Democrats were opposed.
We're working through all of it, and the White House wants to reset the deck and wants to bring manufacturing back home, and I think that's a fantastic idea.
Not good. I like Canada. It's my favorite 51st state, and we bring down, that's a joke, by the way.
I know, the thing is in Canada, that's not going to go over as a joke.
Okay, leave that outside. But we bring down hydro, we bring down energy. The idea of putting a 20% tariff on that is terrible.
Canada becoming the 51st state really seemed to be a punchline, as you just heard, even from Democrats. The outrage among Canadians not necessarily resonating with some of these state leaders. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Nova Scotia's government is not ruling out so-called strong mayor powers for Halifax. Ontario has granted such powers to Toronto and Ottawa, as well as dozens of smaller cities, with the aim of getting housing built more quickly. Strong mayors have veto power to override bylaws and hire and fire municipal staff. They also prepare the city's budget instead of council.
Of course, strong mayor powers have been discussed across the country, I can't say right now yes or no. I'll just say remains to be seen.
But some have called the powers undemocratic and ineffective in reaching those housing goals.
We have seen the odd example where the mayor has been able to enact some rules and be able to implement some of those vetoes where they've been able to move certain projects forward. So there have been examples where it has happened. But ultimately, we've seen that it's been a bit of a detriment to the overall administration of government.
Tim Houston could be taking a page out of Ontario Premier Doug Ford's playbook. Houston supported Ford at his campaign rally yesterday. Well, Team Canada took down the USA last night in the politically charged final of the Four Nations face-off. A lot of sleepy Nova Scotians today who stayed up to watch the game. It meant something special right here in Nova Scotia because, of course, 3 of the team's top players hail from our province. Kayla Hounsell has that story.
There was an extraordinary amount of emotion in this room when that final goal was scored, as there was across the country, to be sure. But there was something different happening here in the Halifax area with 3 hometown players on the ice together. Cole Harbour is home to Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon. Just down the road, Hammonds Plains home to Brad Marchand. When Nathan MacKinnon scored that first goal, this place erupted into a huge cheer. Someone here told me this is the house that Crosby built. So when McDavid scored that final goal, this place just lost it. There was hugging and screaming, crying, jumping up and down.
What a game! My God, I'm so happy! We got them! So emotional for you. Yes, it is! It's a big thing. It's like we won the world. So it's great.
You look at passing the torch, Crosby, MacKinnon. McKinnon's now the young gun from Cole Harbour. Crosby on the back end. Obviously, you may see him one more time, but it's going to be MacKinnon and McDavid going forward. I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, obviously the Cole Harbour boys showed up.
And Crosby and MacKinnon grew up playing hockey at a rink a stone's throw from this bar. So for some here, this is still very surreal. They watch them grow up. When they go to the local rink, they see their names on banners hanging from the rafters. And so to watch them play together on this international stage and win is a dream. So they say while they're very proud of their country, they're especially proud of the hometown boys. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia.
And you are looking at a live shot, Halifax Harbour, and a very pretty sunset. Ryan will be back next with the full weather forecast. Okay, Ryan, before we get to your forecast, as you well know, it's been an awfully icy winter with the recent back-to-back storms making a mess of driveways, sidewalks all around Halifax. And that, coupled with a salt shortage, has put many in a very slippery situation, including one couple from Dartmouth. The CBC's Ella Burke reports.
This was the sound all across Halifax this week after layers of ice piled up in people's driveways. It took Valerie Holloman and her husband Ari 3 days to finally get their car out.
We both have health issues. We're both older now, 82 and 88, and we both have issues. I would say that's my only concern. It's not food or anything.
Last weekend, snow, rain, and then freezing temperatures left ice-filled driveways and sidewalks. Holloman started to call around for help immediately.
I thought it was a city problem because it was actually a plow that had dumped this stuff in front of our in front of the house.
She called her municipal councillor, the 311 and 211 helplines, but had no luck. The couple even tried to hire someone, but no one had the right equipment to dig out that much ice.
I have a 10 horsepower blower, snow blower. Usually no problem at all to get the snow out of the way, but this is ice, and the snow blower just can't handle that.
Ice buildup on the roads and sidewalks was discussed during a Halifax Budget Committee meeting this week. Public Works official Beverly Audit said there wasn't enough time between storms to clear out all the ice.
I don't think we've seen a storm like that for 5 years, let alone 2 back-to-back.
Councillor Mancini brought up a point raised by community members.
We forget as Nova Scotians, right? The last 3-4 winters have been relatively mild, 1 or 2 storms, not this freeze that we've gotten. It's hard on the equipment, it's hard on staff. But, at the same time here we're talking about budget, and we have residents come and speak to us, you're raising our taxes and my streets and my sidewalks aren't clear.
Another issue was a salt shortage throughout the city. But at Costco Friday morning, a stroke of good luck and a welcome shipment hit the shelves. A maximum of 5 bags per customer.
It's rough when that's our reality, that we can't find salt to get out of our streets and sidewalks and stuff.
And for the Hollamans, eventually luck was also on their side as well. The ice at the end of their driveway was eventually cleared by a good Samaritan. Ella Burke, CBC News, Halifax.
Boy, you've really got a feel for that couple in that situation. So many folks really
Absolutely.
in that situation.
Yeah, so the salt shortage, as I mentioned on the show yesterday, again, folks been reaching out. They've been using table salt. I mentioned the pickle juice on the show yesterday. Yeah. You need a lot of pickle juice to get through that mound of ice at the end of their driveway. Listen, Mother Nature is going to help and cooperate a little bit over the next, say, 5-6 days. We're going to see temperatures starting to creep up, which is good. And a little bit of melting each day.
That's what we really need.
That's what we really need. Have a look at high temperatures today, and you can see up around the freezing mark, and when it's coupled with a little bit of sunshine, it does go a long way. Now, we had that light snow this morning across the province, and so that obviously only helped to cover that ice up, but we'll look at a little more in the way of sunshine for Saturday, and temperatures likely mild enough to get some of that solar melting going on. As you can see, temperatures right now, -1 to -5. The coolest spots in through Sydney and Ingonish Beach and Cheticamp. And as we look at the winds, they've been pretty significant today, at least making their presence felt, we'll put it that way. Sustained in the 20, 30, 40 range right now at Westport. We've been gusting upwards of 40 to 50 kilometers per hour, and we'll continue to see some of those gusts through the overnight. A couple of lingering flurries over northern areas over the next hour or so, just on the tail side of this system, which is bringing blizzard conditions to St. John's and the Avalon Peninsula in Newfoundland. That is now going to be continuing to move out. We've got this northerly flow continuing to be ushered in here across the Maritimes. And watching this next system here moving over Hudson Bay, that's going to be what will bring us some light snow for Sunday. Temperatures have warmed up in through western parts of the country, and you can see even down towards Orlando, just 14 degrees as that cold air has pushed pretty far south at the moment. Now, for Friday night, we're talking about temperatures -5 to -8 to start their Saturday. This is where the temperatures will be through the northwest wind, 20 gusting 30 to 40. That will persist into Saturday morning as well. You can see the skies gradually clearing overnight. For Saturday, clouds likely a little bit stubborn for Cape Breton. Most of the mainland looking pretty good. At the very least, a mix of sun and cloud to even mainly sunny skies. No Cape Breton here, remaining capped under that cloud cover even into the afternoon. There's a chance for some flurries continuing for Inverness, north of Mabu, and back around into the Victoria County area. The rest of the island may see at least a few peaks of sun into the afternoon, and that northwest wind will remain a little bit persistent there. Back in through the rest of the mainland, though, we'll start to get into a little bit more in the way of sunshine, and the winds will become light into the afternoon. So that it will add to a nice feel to your Saturday afternoon if you want to get out and stretch your legs with some of that sunshine. Just be mindful, lots of ice around if you are going for a little walk. We are looking at the Sunday forecast, clouds, some flurries, and yes, even some light accumulation possible here. Temperatures bumping up into the 0 to 2 range. A little bit cooler Cape Breton, closer to the freezing mark, maybe -1 in Sydney. And our snowfall outlook for Sunday, Light gray here is 0 to 2 centimeters, and I think that's where most of us will land. This is going to be a coating, nothing to be too concerned about, but maybe the higher terrain areas, that stretch of the 104 out through Mount Tom and over the Cobequid Pass might see a little bit more than that, maybe closer to 5. And the fact that this is going to be coming in, A, with the temperatures that are going to be mild, near the freezing mark, and B, that it'll be kind of lighter snow. I'm not overly concerned about too much accumulation on the roads, maybe just enough to make things a little bit slushy. So make sure if you are traveling, you've got the windshield washer fluid topped right up for Sunday. That trough moves through. We've got an area of high pressure moving in on the other side, and that will set up for some more sunshine on Monday. Now, next week is an interesting little stretch here. We've got clouds dominating, showers and flurries as a series of systems will be influencing us here in the region. Note temperatures fairly mild for this time of year. Mid, even some high single digits possible. Still some uncertainty, but I think the one thing that is looking more likely is a couple of flurries on Tuesday, and then that wave comes through Tuesday night into Wednesday. That is looking more likely to be showers, even rainfall. And then a secondary system we'll have to keep an eye on for Thursday. And then we've got perhaps a third system late week, although right now that's looking set to track offshore. But a bit of an unsettled stretch to the end of next week, Elizabeth, with not a whole lot of sunshine. So do get out and enjoy the sun on Saturday.
Yeah, that Saturday sun looks perfect. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Coming up, we learn about one of the few Black surgeons in the province who is giving back to his community. Welcome back. Orthopedic surgery is a highly sought-after specialty in medicine, and getting into the profession attracts top candidates. Dr. Bernard Bergeson found the path to becoming an orthopedic surgeon. It took him from Dalhousie Medical School all the way to Boston to do a fellowship at Harvard. Dr. Bergeson decided to return to Nova Scotia to give back to the province he loves and to encourage diversity in his profession. Here's his story.
I don't remember saying I want to be a doctor, but it's always been there for me, honestly. I'm Bernard Bergeson. I'm a staff orthopedic surgeon here at Nova Scotia Health. I've always wanted to do medicine, and my thought was go away to university, play basketball, and I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to do that at Queen's University. Although my path was not streamlined or straight, so my family moved all the way from a tropical Ghana, Accra, to Port Hawkesbury, Nova Scotia in the middle of winter. And for us as kids growing up, it was exciting, but I'm sure for our parents, moving from warm weather to -10, -15 all at once was challenging. To me, it came somewhat naturally in high school in terms of balancing athletics and academics, but that did change once I got to university when the stakes got a little bit higher. I was living my dream at that time in terms of being away from home, having some independence, having an immediate family, brothers on the basketball team who welcome you and you do everything together. There are a lot of distractions. And that, to me, for me personally, was where I kind of went off track a little bit in terms of taking my eye off my academics and my goals. I think my first 2 years, my GPA was 2.5. And to get into medical school, I needed my GPA to be, closer to 4.0. So big difference. That involved really committing to the transition and changing my habits day in, day out. So this is my degree from Queen's University with my full name, Bernard Niyaboa Bergeson.
And that's your Ghanaian middle name.
Yeah, Niyaboa is my Ghanaian middle name. So I applied to medical school twice. And for me, I felt I just needed an opportunity to actually interview. If I could interview and share my story and share why I feel like I am right for medicine, I would have a pretty good chance of getting in. And luckily, I was able to get in. I think the message in that for me is to be resilient. We always think things are going to go according to plan, and that was certainly my thought when I went into university. I got knocked down, and it really took a lot to really sit back, self-assess and reflect, and figure out what's most important to me right now. So I started working here at the Halifax Infirmary as a staff surgeon in August of last year. The group here is not very diverse. I am the only Black surgeon in the group, and there's one female surgeon as well. It's up to us as staff surgeons to really engage women and engage Black medical students and say, hey, this is an attractive and it's a good specialty. You should consider it and we will support you. If we can do it, you can do it. Mentorship is very important because one, I feel like as one of the few African Nova Scotian surgeons at the QE2 and affiliated with the med school, I need to be visible. And it's, my little way of giving back. This brings back such fond memories of Boston and my fellowship in general, working with such bright minds on cutting edge, techniques and even research. But for me, the decision to come back home was a no-brainer. Nova Scotia is a place I hold near and dear to my heart.
This ain't no GD.
All right, let's go. Okay. So we have here my brother Alfred. We have Namdi, we have Emmanuel, and we have Korede. Namdi, Emmanuel, and Korede are Black medical students here at Dalhousie University. They often get together at least once a week on the weekends to play.
My name's Korede Akindoju, and I'm a third-year medical student.
You gotta hit that.
Orthopedic surgeon, and it's one of the things that I'm interested in doing, so it's nice to see somebody has made that path and makes it, seemed possible for me to potentially do that as well.
How is Dr. Bergeson? How is he on the basketball court?
He's good. He was cooking me today, so yeah, he's good. I was trying my best. I got some shots on him, but he was very impressive today too. Yeah.
How does it feel to be back on the court?
It feels pretty good. Quite rusty, but it's been a lot of fun. We're going to start an initiative where I'm going to start joining them more and more. And these guys are, really good players too, so it's been a good time hanging out with these guys.
Coming up, a win for the ages. More on Team Canada's win over the USA in the politically charged final of the Four Nations face-off. Welcome back. Fans across Canada are still reveling in the victory over the USA at the Four Nations face-off. With political tensions simmering between the two countries, it's a win that's seen as bigger than just what happened on the ice. Sarah Levitt reports.
From sea to sea to sea and even abroad, Canadians are basking in the glow of an epic win at the Four Nations Cup.
It's a big thing. It's like we won the world.
One of the best experiences of my life. Very proud to be Canadian right now.
I was really happy.
Like, you can't lose to the U.S., right? So it was the best moment.
Canada's success in hockey is renowned, but the United States has become a powerhouse of its own.
That's going to do it. A hard-fought Team USA victory.
They had beaten Canada 3-1 in their first meeting of the tournament, so Thursday night's game had an edge. Scrappy, tense, with an overtime close, making the ultimate win even better.
In that room is proud to be a Canadian. And yeah, did we need a win? Not only like our team, but Canada needed a win.
A sentiment felt by many after a month filled with Donald Trump's tariff threats and comments about Canada as the 51st state.
You're not just playing for the maple leaf on the front of you anymore. You're playing for the whole country, and to kind of show him, like, look, we're proud. This is our game. Leave us alone.
It's a pivotal time to show our force, a great nation. I don't know. It's really nice to be able to kind of like stick it to the man a little bit. Like, I don't know if I can say that.
This is the Canada-U.S. stuff that has been going on over the last month and a half. It was great to see for the country, for the player. You can't write a better script.
A script that even had Canada's political leaders united, perhaps showing sport can bring people together for a moment, at least. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
U.S. President Donald Trump is doubling down on his criticism of Europe's handling of the war in Ukraine. On a Fox Radio podcast today, he claimed British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron have done, quote, nothing to end the conflict. Both men will visit the White House next week. The EU, meanwhile, is hinting at providing Ukraine with a new multi-billion-dollar aid package. Russia continues to launch attacks on Kyiv and other cities, despite beginning peace talks with U.S. mediators. The war hits a new and somber milestone on Monday. It will be 3 years since Moscow launched its invasion. Catholics worldwide are keeping a close eye on the health of Pope Francis. The 88-year-old pontiff has been in hospital since Valentine's Day. Francis has been hospitalized several times in the past years, and that is leading to speculation that he may choose to resign. The CBC's Megan Williams is at the Vatican with more.
Well, it was a week ago that Pope Francis was brought from his home inside the Vatican, the Santa Marta guest house, to Gemelli Hospital, where he initially was treated for bronchitis and now for double pneumonia. There is no word of him getting out. There are thousands of pilgrims pouring into Rome for the Holy Jubilee year, but cancellations that the Vatican announced of Pope Francis's participation remain, and there's no talk of him getting out anytime soon to greet so many of the pilgrims who came here, hoping that they would catch a sight of him. His condition seems to have stabilized, and the Pope joked with some of his advisors, saying, well, it doesn't look like there'll be a conclave this time, so that's positive. He thinks that he'll likely get out of the hospital. But there is open talk of his resignation. A top Cardinal, Gianfranco Ravasi, went on Italian radio yesterday and talked about that, saying that he thought if the Pope got to a point where he was incapacitated or couldn't greet people, who couldn't carry out his obligations as Pope, make important decisions, that he would probably opt to resign. The Pope himself has said he thinks popes should be popes until death, ad vitam. But he did also say that if he got to a point where his health deteriorated enough, he would consider resigning as well, something that, of course, the Pope before him, Benedict XVI, did for the first time in 600 years. Megan Williams, CBC News, the Vatican.
New data from British Columbia and Washington State shows fewer people are crossing the border into the U.S. As John Hernandez reports now, community leaders say one of the main causes is the political tension caused by Donald Trump.
Thousands of cars cross the Peace Arch border into Whatcom County just about every day, but lately there isn't as much traffic, and it's already ringing some alarm bells.
This is becoming like what we experienced during COVID.
Data from BC and Washington State show there's been a lot fewer cars traveling south compared to the same time in 2024. Traffic was already down for the first few weeks of the year. Then, the day after Donald Trump's inauguration, a 29% drop. The traffic volume steadily declined right up until the Family Day weekend, which averaged 40% fewer drivers daily. There were also decreases at the Pacific Highway and Sumas border crossings. Local leaders have some ideas on what's behind the numbers.
The Canadian dollar has gone very low, which is unfortunate. At the same time, what is happening with the federal government, the talk of tariffs.
Residents in these U.S. border towns are aware Canadians might be choosing to avoid spending their dollars in the U.S. amid the mounting political turmoil and threats of annexation.
All the cities do report a slight decrease in sales revenue, or maybe even a flattening. We don't know whether that's because Canadians aren't shopping or Americans aren't shopping, but we are concerned about it.
Blaine Mayor Mary Lou Stewart says tourism dollars are critical to her border town's economy.
And I have lots of family and friends in Canada, and they are saying, we're not going to forget this, and I can understand that.
So these neighbors to the south want to send Canadians a message.
We want them to understand that whatever sentiment is coming out of Washington, D.C. does not represent the feelings of the city of Blaine.
You are always welcome.
A peaceful gesture as these border towns hold out hope this recent visitor decline doesn't become a long-term trend. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Charlottetown MLA Rob Lance is Canada's newest premier. His predecessor, Dennis King, shocked many on Prince Edward Island with his abrupt exit yesterday. Lance takes over at a busy and challenging time for the province. He was sworn in earlier today.
At a time of uncertainty, whether in trade, tariffs, or the many challenges we face, I am committed to ensuring that Islanders' interests come first. Strengthening our economy and ensuring Islanders have access to essential services will remain top priorities. This is the beginning of a new chapter for our government and for our province.
There is bad news tonight for Prince Edward Island's snow crab fishery. The Federal Department of Fisheries is reporting a drop in stocks, and it is recommending a reduction in catches in 2025 for the second year in a row. All of this comes as the threat of U.S. tariffs loom over the seafood industry. Nancy Russell reports.
PEI's snow crab fishers are facing a big cut in how much they can catch in 2025. The Federal Department of Fisheries is recommending a 33% reduction in the southern Gulf of St. Lawrence.
33.32%. It kind of hits you hard because it's a substantial amount of crab to lose, and it's a substantial income to lose.
This year's reduction comes on the heels of a similar cut last season.
Kind of a little bit scary seeing 2 years with such substantial drops.
DFO scientists say they're worried about the stocks of snow crab in the southern Gulf, which they say rise and fall on a 10-year cycle and are now below average.
In 2-3 years' time, we're expecting, if everything continues to go according to plan, that the commercial stock will have an influx of new crab coming in, so the commercial biomass should go up at that time.
The snow crab industry in the region gave DFO a proposal of their own, knowing that the cuts were coming. Alden Goody says they were asking for what's called a 200% partnership, where two license holders can team up on one boat.
To be able to fish 150 traps out of one boat, which would save substantial cost on crew shares, bait, fuel. It would mean that the boats will come in with more crab on them, so there's a chance that they can come in with their quota faster, but was denied by the Minister of Fisheries.
Goody says the minister didn't give any reason for rejecting the proposal. He says the snow crab industry could take a hard hit if the U.S. tariffs go ahead, because snow crab could become too expensive for the average consumer.
The crab will still move, but it's going to move way slower.
Goody says there are also discussions about starting the season earlier to avoid the migration of right whales into the Gulf, which is another concern. Goody says the season could open as early as April 1st. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Charlottetown.
A trip to a sunny destination is something many of us look forward to, but some Manitobans visiting Mexico were instead counting down the days till they could return home. Many of them fell ill while staying at an all-inclusive in Playa del Carmen. Felicia Adam has more.
Joel Boyle is happy to be home after 6 days in Mexico. He and his wife hired to photograph a wedding at Sandoz Playa Car, an all-inclusive resort in Playa del Carmen. They saw it as a chance for a family trip.
It was supposed to be a really enjoyable experience, but it was an absolute nightmare.
2 days in, Boyle says people around them became ill. He thought nothing of it until his entire family became sick. His 2- and 4-year-olds hit the worst.
Just lifeless, no personality, could barely speak.
The group Boyle was part of had 33 people in it. He says only 2 were spared. While there, he spoke to 4 other wedding groups.
Every single one stated the same thing, with at least 80% of their numbers being sick.
Nelson Azevedo was the officiant of that wedding. The bride, his niece, also fell ill.
It destroyed the whole trip. My niece's wedding was postponed. She couldn't make it. She got attacked really bad.
Boyle and Azevedo say their complaints were dismissed, with multiple staff telling them the same thing.
You must have been sick before you got here. Nobody else is sick. Like, it's just, you'll be fine. Our water's fine, our food's fine, everything's fine.
CBC Manitoba was contacted by people across Canada that recently stayed at the resort, from Saskatchewan, Vancouver, and Ontario, all facing similar illnesses while staying at Sandoz Playa Car. Many questioning if cleanliness at the resort had something to do with why they got sick.
There was just this raw sewage smell in the air, and that raw sewage smell seemed to permeate the food. Everything, all the food there looked amazing, but every bite was just wrong. Something was off.
When asked about wedding groups falling ill, Sandoz Playa Car said, "We hear that both the United States and Canada are currently experiencing a significant increase in cases of gastrointestinal illnesses, primarily related to norovirus, but also seasonal flu. Maybe there's some correlation." Boyle and a dozen others are filing complaints, calling on the Mexican health authorities to investigate, hoping that no one else experiences what they did. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
In financial news, Canada's main stock index fell more than 350 points today amid broad-based losses, while U.S. stock markets also declined. Here's a look at how the markets did today as we head into the break.
And this is Nova Scotia on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Get local headlines, weather, and community stories, plus newscasts and live programming on your favorite connected device, all for free. It's called the CBC News Nova Scotia streaming channel. See your community on your connected TV and mobile devices. Your local news streaming channel, now available.
Okay, Ryan's here with one last look at the forecast, and Saturday looks perfect for chilling.
Yes, it does.
Not being chilly, but for chilling.
Yeah, that's right. It does look great. We've got some sunshine in the mix. Temperatures are going to be, a little bit cool, but we'll take it for the sunshine and the winds becoming light, which will be nice. Have a look at our viewer picture of the day, and we'll zoom in. Now, this is always a beautiful spot.
Oh, yes.
Most notably in the summer when we're seeing most of the pics from Lunenburg. But Craig May with a beautiful shot of Lunenburg Harbor in the wintertime.
Look at that pretty sky.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Thanks to Craig for sharing. Ryan's pics at cbc.ca. All right, so there's Saturday, and in Lunenburg, right around -3 for Saturday. Most of the province, -3 to -5. Northwest winds. A little bit breezy early on if you're heading out for that early morning dog walk, but the wind's becoming lighter into the afternoon, which will be great. And as we look ahead to Sunday, the clouds are going to build in. We will see some flurries, even some light snowfall, especially into the afternoon and evening, with some light accumulation. A couple of centimeters possible with this, especially higher terrain areas. The Cobequid Pass, higher elevations of that 104 stretch between Truro and Cape Breton, so a heads up on that. There is the trough that's moving its way in, building those clouds in Saturday night. There are the flurries and light snow for Sunday, lingering into the evening, and then that area of high pressure comes in and clears us all out for Monday. Monday, a little bit of sun, and then not much after that, although temperatures do look mild, so a little bonus there.
All in all, pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, lava was sizzling over snow on Italy's Mount Etna, and that's drawing a lot of tourists. That is prompting officials to warn visitors not to get too close. Mountain rescue crews say tourists often arrive wearing clothes that offer little protection and end up with injuries when they go near the flowing lava. Authorities are monitoring the latest volcanic activity very closely.
Eruptions and ash emissions have also affected air travel around the area. The 3,300-meter high Etna is one of the world's most active volcanoes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And that is it for us tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time.
Have a great weekend.